So this week there's been lots of reports that Manchester United are willing to sell Marcus Rashford in the summer. I think we just need to talk about this because he's arguably the face of Manchester United, maybe up there with Bruno Fernandes, but he's the longest sort of standing first team regular in the team. He's been at the club for over 20 years, I think, as a child and now as an adult. He's one of the highest paid players at the club. He's had one of the best seasons of any United player in the last decade when he got 30 goals 2 years ago. And yet it feels like most people want him to leave Manchester United. Just firstly, give me your reaction to this news that supposedly United not only are up for selling him now, but weren't against selling him in the summer.
A little bit of surprise on the summer one because it didn't feel like that was happening, and certainly didn't feel like we had the personnel to be able to allow that to happen in the summer. Less surprised about the willingness, I think would be the word, to sell him come January. But we did a video a few weeks ago, me, you, Jay, I don't know if Maka was on it as well, where we went through what we would keep, what we would sell. And I think collectively we ended up keeping him, but I think I wanted to sell him. Is that right? Is that
I
what
think
went
so,
down?
yeah. I think so.
I would sell him. I would sell him if you can identify what you're bringing in as an alternative, because I think the wording that I used at the time, or if it wasn't, it was on a subsequent video, he doesn't look happy playing for Manchester United, and he should be the happiest person on that pitch playing for Manchester United because he is one of us. You know, he comes from a family of United fans. Like you said, all the things that you said earlier, he's been here forever, he's grown up here, but he doesn't look happy in himself at the moment. And I think you have to be happy in yourself, at least on some level, to be able to perform your best at your job. And he looks so far from that. Now, I agree, there is a sizable part of the fan base that's not having him right now. And what was it, the most criticised athlete in the world. Now that's got to be a weight to carry around. And that's not excusing some of the performances, that's not excusing some of the body language. I feel like a lot of things that he does get jumped on, amplified and over-scrutinised. But the fact remains, he's been inconsistent, he doesn't look happy, and that was the leaders behind my thoughts on, no, do you know what, I'd probably move him on. Once you factor in that you've got a manager that I think his systems don't obviously suit Marcus Rashford's abilities, then the reasons to keep him are outweighed by the reasons to sell him.
So just going back to something you said at the start of that about him not looking happy, and you know he should be happy because he's a United fan playing for Man United, and we'd all love that. As a United fan, have you been happy in the last 6 or 7 years or 8 years since Rashford made his debut? Has it been a happy time to be a United fan or involved with Manchester United?
No, it's not. But when I see Bruno Fernandes giving more of a shit on the pitch, then I've got questions. When I see Martinez, De Ligt, Onana, players that have been here 5 seconds, didn't grow up as Manchester United fans, giving more of a shit, then I've got questions. You know, if you're not happy, you're the one guy out of all of us that are United fans that gets to have a hand in changing it. Can we see a little bit of blood and thunder from you? Because I don't. We can all be unhappy, but you've got to do what you can do. And whether that's the professionalism of you as a professional athlete, or whether that's the Manchester United fan in you, I think there's a lot being left on the table. I know that there's more in there. I've seen more from you. And I'm not just even talking about ability. Ability comes and goes. Form comes and goes. Sometimes it zigs when it should zag. But effort is the thing you control. And I don't feel like I'm getting the effort on the pitch out of Rashford.
There's been a lot of talk, and he mentioned it in this Telegraph article, obviously, about his off-the-field stuff. Whether that be, going back to the good stuff that he did during lockdown with the school meals, or obviously more recently, it's the negative stuff with trips to Belfast. There was also reports of just a general feeling that maybe Marcus isn't as focused on his football as he should be. And these are phrases that kind of get trotted out when a club is sick of someone. So whether we take it with a pinch of salt or not, there has certainly been evidence that he isn't quite as focused on his football as he might be. Do you think that would almost be of bigger concern than some of the on-the-field stuff? Like maybe he has taken his foot off the gas a bit, or he has got a bit sick of it, or there's all these sorts of things. These reports of off-the-field stuff aren't going away. Does that worry you as much as the on-field stuff almost?
Yes and no. I thought a lot was made at the time of him, the school meals stuff. In reality, Marcus probably vocalised an idea to his family, and it was left to people who work for him to go and action. He wasn't really in meetings putting together PowerPoints and the rest of that sort of stuff. A lot of the actions that he did was a tweet saying, I think we should have a think about this. Yeah. That was probably the most of his real serious, deep involvement. I believe he had phone calls with Prime Minister. I think he might have even spoken to Barack Obama at one point. But I think Marcus's work was overblown in that. I think he was the driver behind a lot of that. I don't think he was the one that was actually putting together the strategies for how all of that was about to work. And I think we said at the time, the press and the government are going to come for him because he's made them look like pricks. Yeah. And they absolutely did. A lot of the media came for him. And you see that in the coverage of, look at how he dresses. I couldn't give a fuck how another man dresses. I'm going to be honest with you. It really doesn't bother me apart from you. Yeah. Fair. For obvious reasons. It doesn't bother me. No. I saw David Beckham, one of the most committed footballers ever. Questionable fashion sense at times and flawless at other times, but he took a risk. I think it's fair to say. Did it affect his football? No. Not a fucking jot. And I don't think that sort of stuff affects the football. I'd be way more worried of someone's off-field activities if it was more like Jack Grealish's off-field activities. Now, Marcus has had a couple of incidents where Jack Grealish has got a catalogue of those incidents. Like, oh, look, he had a night out in Belfast. Cool. Do we want to start following around Jack Grealish with the same sort of scrutiny? Because I think you're going to see a different fucking story emerge if that's what you do. Obviously, that was a mistake. There's been a couple of other little mistakes in there. But I don't think it's the catalogue that people want to make it out to be. I think because it's him, it finds its way to the media a little bit more. There's a hell of a lot more footballers doing a hell of a lot more fuckery, and it just isn't the same sort of news as it is when it's Marcus Rashford. And I think that's a little bit of it. You're hearing about it more because of who it is rather than what it is.
I've got a little bit of a theory about rebuilds at football clubs, and I think some of it is you almost have to go through the mental refresh of a rebuild in order to be successful again. I don't think you can take a team that's gone from 5th and 3rd and 2nd at times, like this team has over the years, and take them to champions without a big sort of out and in of new faces. I think, and part of that is a psychological thing. I think that you can't just go, Marcus, you're capable of a 30-goal season, go and do it in a title-winning side. I think sometimes you have to go, oh my God, they're absolutely ripping this squad apart to go again. And the freshness that comes with that and the mindset that comes with that. Do you almost think that he might be needed to be moved on as part of Manchester United and Ineos and Amorim showing us all and showing the squad themselves, this is real, this is proper, this isn't just a new lick of paint and a facelift. We are tearing this down and rebuilding it. Do you almost think he could be a sad, maybe not sad, but a kind of a byproduct of us having to go through this rebuild, and him leaving could be part of that?
Yeah, and I think you roll back to some of what Ralph Rangnick said, where he said he prefers players on their first or second contract. What does that imply? What's the extrapolation of that, do you think?
That people who are still proving themselves, people who are desperate to show you how good they are, rather than someone who's sort of made it, potentially.
I'll throw another angle on it.
Go on then.
What if you've only ever had one manager and one idea and one set of tactics? So me giving you a second one isn't confusing. It isn't competing with the Paul McGuinness way to play that you had as a teenager. That isn't competing with how Louis van Gaal told you to express yourself, or how Jose Mourinho told you to express yourself, or how Ole Gunnar Solskjaer told you to express yourself, or how Ralph Rangnick told you to express yourself, or how Erik ten Hag told you to express yourself. So when Ruben Amorim gets him, he looks at probably 10 or more different, and that's forgetting his England career as well. He looks at 10 or more managers' fingerprints all over someone and goes, I could probably work better with a youngster. And I think that's why youngsters sometimes come in and be a little bit of a breath of fresh air. It's because a lot of football is instinct and muscle memory. And when you've had, okay, the ideas will not be vastly different. But there's going to be different focuses and different ideas and different spacings that are imparted on you. And I think sometimes some players are very adaptable and students of the game themselves, and they'll be really keen to try a new way to play. And some of them aren't. And some of them might not be able to play in a different manner. We saw Ryan Giggs go from a Zaha-style winger, all about the cutback, beating and skinning defenders, to a cultured central midfielder in the Modric kind of role. Phenomenal. Not talked about enough how he managed to reinvent himself from one thing to the other. Not every player can do that.
No. Do you? So I've got two more questions for you. The first one is: do you worry that selling him could be a sort of almost we're buying into this sort of 3-4-3 and this number 10 kind of inside forwardy number 10 role so much that we're potentially losing one of our most talented players? Does that worry you at all if we were to let him go?
Yes and no. I'm not sure I've got the confidence Marcus will ever hit a consistent 30-goal a season level.
What about the 20-goal a season level?
I don't see the evidence of it right now. I don't see the evidence of him doing that as a player. I know that we saw him working out with Oppa. That feels like intensity rather than consistency.
Yeah.
If I was hearing about how Oppa basically has his own fucking room at Rashford's house because they're just fucking putting the work in, then I'd be like, it's coming. Just watch. 'Cause you don't hear of people doing that and it not working. I don't know. I think I don't have the confidence. I don't have the I'm happy to be wrong. Fucking delighted if I'm wrong, and he stays and he smashes it and he becomes United's all-time leading goal scorer. But do you have the confidence he's going to do that?
It doesn't feel like it at the minute, does it? And we're on the cusp of three subpar seasons in 4.
Yeah.
Which I think this season he's got 10 goals and assists so far. If you triple that, we're about a third of the way through the season.
The performances
30 goals and assists is better than most wingers get, but like you said, the performances haven't quite been there.
The performance aren't really there in the slightest. I think when you look at what's likely to happen, the only thing that concerns me really is going both feet into the 3-4-3. Okay, what's the plan if Amorim doesn't work?
Yeah,
because we've seen this. We went from Louis van Gaal to Jose Mourinho, where it was very, very different. Even though it was the same formation, the philosophy within that was very, very different. Mainly Jose's being, I don't like Dutch people, off you pop. Yeah,
that seemed to be the rules.
Which was a little bit of a problem.
Yeah,
after we'd just had a Dutch with a lot of Dutch players. If you get that sort of big sidestep from one manager to the next, on one hand you go from Jose, where everything had got a little bit toxic and a little bit nasty and a little bit to Ollie, who comes in and brings a little bit of energy and a little bit of freshness, then it can kind of pop up and work for a period of time. But when you make that big sidestep from one thing to the other, there's going to be an adjustment period, and I think you almost have to kind of go through the adjustment period, and that probably does mean chopping off big players. Now, I bet when you looked at Sir Alex in 1986 when he arrived, and you say, right, you've got, not if Mark Hughes was here or came a touch later, Paul McGrath, Norman Whiteside, Brian Robson, all of those. Obviously, Robbo got stuck around, but a lot of the fucking serious footballers in McGrath and Whiteside and some of the others that were kicking around a little bit at the time, there's no way you think getting rid of those is going to lead you to becoming champions. But it did, because the players that he brought in, now there was obviously the drinking side of things and the lack of professionalism side of things that he wanted to change, but he didn't change Brian Robson.
No.
He was the fucking ringleader of those nights out, days on days out, because he was still able to put it in and put the work in. He prided himself on going on the smash and then leading the runs in training the next day. Who's the metaphorical version of that? Who's the person that's going to be putting in the most work? Because I don't think any Premier League football at the moment is going on 48-hour benders in the middle of the week. I just don't think that's happening.
No, it can't be happening.
I'd be flabbergasted and well impressed if anyone was actually putting that work.
The standards that football is at now, and athleticism and diet and food and training and sleep and all that, surely no one's doing that. Final question then. Let's say Marcus Rashford is sold. We decide that's enough. It's a two-parter. Firstly, how much do you think we get for him? And secondly, who do we bring in to replace him? Because I feel like you sell a talisman. I know Ineos don't want to do the sort of big name Di Maria, Lukaku, Falcao nonsense, but I do feel like if you sell him and get, Harvey Barnes, people are going to kick off. I think it has to be someone with at least a little bit of sort of cultural cachet within football.
What if it was Son?
But
so it's shorter term.
It's short term. It's 32. I mean, I think people would like it. I think it's a good signing, but I think
he suits what we're trying to do more.
But he's a free transfer that's not. Where's my Rashford money gone? I think is the question. Yeah, how much we're going to get, and who should we spend his money on?
I don't necessarily know if you allocate all of the funds directly to replacing him as is. Obviously, you're not going to, I wouldn't have thought, go for a left inside forward, left winger. I think it is going to be maybe some more of a playmaker in the 10. Or maybe it isn't. Like, maybe they go, we think Bruno can do that job in that position there, and Ahmad can do the one on the other side, but we need a midfielder or a striker. Maybe it's the left wing back. Like, there's so much that you've going to have to rejig in the squad. Maybe it just goes in the pot. It doesn't necessarily go straight on a direct replacement.
Do you think people would accept that, though? Because
I don't think they'll have a choice.
But I think eventually, if the owners and the managers keep doing things that people don't like, I think it does speed up how quickly we sort of churn through these people. I don't know. Just look at some of the big names then. Obviously, Rodrigo's one that we've been linked with before. He's a big player, obviously, at Real Madrid, but they've kind of got too many up there. I know he's on the other side, but he's someone that maybe could be sold from there. There's other names as well that have sort of floated around in that position. Maybe Kudus from West Ham or someone like that, Heung-min Son you mentioned. Is there anyone where you go, stick him in there?
No.
That is a worry, though, for me.
Maybe, but I'm still learning this system. I'm still learning and how he's trying to play it. I think it very much is more of an attacking midfielder role than a direct forward kind of role. I don't think the Rashford archetype works in this system unless it's as one of the number 9s, and I don't necessarily think that's his best position. I think he's a left winger, and he needs to play in a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. I don't think this system works for him, which is probably very, very frustrating and worrying from his own point of view if he wants to stick around here.
Yeah.
But that's reality, isn't it? Look, listen, the gaffer wants 3-4-3. You better figure out where you're playing a 3-4-3. And if he doesn't stick around, well, then maybe the left wing spot comes back free again. But you're going to have to assume he's here for 2 or 3 years minimum.
Worrying that to me a little bit. The
going all in on one system.
Yeah, because it's
I agree with that.
It's not even. It's a big change, and I sort of thought we weren't doing that anymore. And I know Dan Ashworth wanted, Graham Potter or Eddie Howe, whatever, which I don't agree with. But I think of all the things that reportedly came out from that Ashworth situation, being slightly reluctant to go from a 4 at the back, with wingers and stuff, to a 3-4-3, I do kind of see where there would be reluctance there. Because let's say Amorim this season, he never quite gets to grips with it because he ain't got the squad. He gets 150 million in the summer, and we start poorly. He might be gone by Christmas next year. And then now what? Rashford's gone.
This is where Ineos have to really back themselves. Like, we've made the decision. We really believe he's the guy. We will give him the resources. And that doesn't just mean money. That means like the scouting network and the decision making that goes into identifying the targets, rather than just people spinning around in chairs and going, what's Cristiano Ronaldo up to? It needs to be proper thought out scouting rather than just, and there was some worrying comments in terms of Ashworth wanted a data-driven scouting network. And Jim Radcliffe has gone, it's your fucking job. Pause. Yeah. Cause for concern a little bit.
And then weirdly, though, I know we're sort of moving from Rashford a little bit, but weirdly, in the article with Andy Mitten, he talked about how United's data analysis was 20th century. So I don't know whether he thought that Ashworth should already have that kind of data built into his opinion and his decision making. He wanted to outsource it.
Or he wanted more.
Or whether he thought, I don't know. So it's just not fun again, is it? It was fun, 2 weeks ago, it was fun being a United fan again. We beat Everton and I thought, something might be happening here. And then now it's just all gone downhill again.
You don't get one day without an absolute clusterfuck.
It's a shame, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Because it'd been much easier just riding high and just smashing people and turn up. Who are we playing this week? Victoria, 5-0. Yeah. No problem. Whereas it probably won't be, and it'll probably be a clusterfuck on some level. And you've got the derby at weekend, and that could go. I have no idea.
Very exciting. Right, thank you for joining us. Let us know your thoughts on Rashford in the comments, and how are some of these players going to fit into this 3-4-3 system? And is Rashford just a sort of unfortunate byproduct of changing times at Manchester United? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Hit subscribe as well if you haven't already. We'll see you in a bit.